Lights they flicker and the candles glitter like you're in a thriller. Heart goes pum pum pum. Ghostly figures, they can get so bitter. Sure you want to enter, you can turn back now. You don't know where I've been. What's going on inside? Where the monsters like to come alive, come alive. Do you really wanna know me? I'm really not that cozy. It's up to you, so you decide, you decide. Would you love me up my words till the coffin's in the dirt? Try to break me like a curse, you know that will never work. I'm a little bit absurd, I like dancing on the verge. Anyone can love a pretty little mansion, but could you love a haunted, haunted house? Or could you love me now? A haunted, haunted, I'm a haunted house. A haunted, haunted house. If you're just like it out. A haunted, haunted, I'm a haunted house. Na 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 na. Broken windows and a warning scribbled on my wall saying that you better turn around. Wouldn't be the first to try to burn me down. Your move, you do. Would you love me up my words till the coffin's in the dirt? Try to break me like a curse, you know that will never work. I'm a little bit absurd, I like dancing on the verge. Anyone can love a pretty little mansion, but could you love a haunted, haunted house? Or could you love me now? A haunted, haunted, I'm a haunted house. A haunted, haunted house. If you're just like it out. A haunted, haunted, I'm a haunted house. Na 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 na. Na na na. To you. Could you love a haunted, haunted house? Or could you love me now? A haunted, haunted, I'm a haunted house. A haunted, haunted house. If you're just like inside. A haunted, haunted, I'm a haunted house. Words till the coffin's in the dirt. Anyone can love a pretty little mansion.
It's never too early. It's never too late. Celebrate Halloween. Woo. There you go. Hello, gatekeepers. How are you tonight? Listen, it's never too early, never too late. There's stuff all around me for Halloween. You can celebrate it anytime you want. I had to throw that in there because we're doing haunted houses. We're doing haunts. And it just right on time, right, Renice? Good to see you, darling. It's good to see everybody in here. Hello, Ted. How you doing? Good to see you, Renice. Good to see you, Mayhem. Welcome in, Uncommon. And who else do we have in here? We have Lindsay Gray Wolf. Hello, darling. How are you? Good to see you. And I know we had, let me see who else I saw here. Henry. I know I saw Henry. Much love your way, darling. Do you have both fireplaces going or just one? Lisa Ray, welcome in, sweetie. I was thinking about us today on Tuesday night, and I want you to be thinking about this. If you are here for our Tuesday night at the movies, only on Rumble, because what we do is we will put a movie up, and if you've heard this before, just, go grab some cookies and some tea. But on Rumble, they're allowing us to show feature films. Now, as long as you don't, you're not trying to make money on it, you're not monetizing it, you set it on private, that means everybody who's subscribed to me follows me. It's opposite on Rumble. So I think you follow on Rumble is just free. You just click it and you get all notifications for the channel. Subscribe is different. That's where you're a member. So it's different than YouTube. Okay. So go over there. It's free. Get on the Rumble. I dropped the link. I'll do it again and share it. But it's just Rumble/Cisco. It's not Journey Through the Gate. It's just Cisco. Once you get on Rumble and you start putting videos, you cannot change the name of it. You can't alter it and edit it. So it just says Cisco for now. Thank you so much, Ted. But it's free. That's nothing behind a paywall. That's not what we're doing it for. The reason we do it is we're showing movies. Since we started, we've been showing movies that are based on ghosts and haunted houses and things like that. So we're showing, there's great ones on there. You can still watch them for free in their entirety. Some of them had commercials we tried to get through, couldn't get past it. Everybody wanted to see that movie, and I couldn't get one that was, without commercials, like on Tubi or something like that. But we really wanted to see the movie, so we put up with it and we laughed through it. Whatever, we get through them. But bring your popcorn because they're great. We've watched The Fog last week. We watched, there's another one. What did we watch? It was The Fog, and what was the other one? Lisa, what was that? Oh, shoot. It's been so many. I know we've watched Ghost, Poltergeist 1 and 2. We've watched The Ghost of Mr. Chicken, fabulous, with Don Knotts. It's fantastic. You laugh so hard the first 10 minutes, you just don't know what hit you. We watched, we had a double feature, Abbott and Costello, Amityville. Thank you so much, RP. Thank you, darling. Amityville Horror, that classic. And then we watched, so many different ones. Frequency, which is more like a time slip thing, wasn't really ghosts. But we try to pack them in there because this is the thing. When we watch one, we can talk about what part of this is Hollywood, part of this really happened. I know we watched Entity, which had a lot of famous quote, based on a true story, but that one really was. The true story on that one was more horrifying than the movie, I assure you. Pardon my tea. We have lavender and chamomile tonight. I might just pass right out. White Noise was fabulous. Thanks, Lisa. That was such a learning experience for that one, because that was based on several stories in real life. And the whole thing, the horror with that was electronics that I keep trying to tell people. Love White Noise. Yep. Oops, gosh, I'm sorry. Still getting used to this new mic thing here. White Noise was horrifying because we were talking about how much electronics, whether it's the cell phone you're holding in your hand, or whether it's a television screen or radio or any of this, where spirits can move through, and they're not, the ones doing this are not good spirits. High ascending, higher vibrational beings are not, jumping through people's phones, and things, trying to hit them. And, the more you dig into EVPs, and it was that slow obsession, that person that got drawn in one side, got drawn into the good side, trying to do good with the information he was getting, which was Michael Keaton's part. And then at the end, you saw that there was somebody else doing it. Hey, Froze, how you doing? And new cars. Now cars? I don't understand. Is that a code? Rose, what are you trying to tell me? You guys see this? What does this mean? Cars? Did we watch Cars? Was there ghosts in Cars? But nevertheless, what we do is we try to, bring something like Amityville Horror, and then while we're going through it, digital. Yes, absolutely. I can't say if it's electronic, so much score. We ought to watch Shocker, because that one was something else. Ghost in the Machine, very similar, to what I'm saying. But the thing with White Noise was it could be used for good or evil. And how do you know? So it was very similar to using a Ouija board. How do you know who you're talking to? Exactly. Modern day Ouija board. Thank you, Ted. So it really goes for anything. Be cautious. Use your filters. You can't just go into these things cold. so much caution there, just the whole blinking lights, the whole thing, beep, beep, beep. Because when people say statements like, I use a Ouija board all the time and nothing's ever happened to me, that could very well be true. But how are they doing it? Are they using protection first, using your protection with your filters, your knowledge, you know, the whole light of the whole thing, protection, going in the right way, and then when you're coming back out of it, closing the door, finishing it off, saying goodbye, all the little rules, closing that door. People often open doors and leave them wide open and anything comes in. This is true. This happens. And it can be as drastic as, we've all seen the shows where mediums go in and go, somebody opened a portal and left it, left it open, and all these things have been coming and going. Yes, this happens. It's as simple as that. And we can open them in lots of ways. And White Noise and several other of the movies we watched actually really focused on that kind of thing. And I think it's important to know that if you're in the paranormal, supernatural, understand what you're getting into, What are you saying, Ted? At the behest of the serpent, Eve bit into the apple. Oh, goodness. Here we go. At the behest of the serpent, Eve bit into the apple. Now billions carry the image in their hands. Ooh, interesting. Of the bite or the apple or the serpent? I'm not familiar with that one. Please explain. So anyway, that's why we do it Tuesday nights on Rumble, only on Rumble. We cannot do that on YouTube. Also, I've been researching. I've been like 4 days this week, just really digging deep into the new series I'm going to call Tapestry. And the reason I'm calling it Tapestry is because it is going to be about the JFK. And this is one that I've been trying to work myself up to. I've dove into it in several different ways with people like Mark Shaw, a wonderful author. Gosh, last time I counted, it was like 38 books. I actually talked him into writing one of them, and that was the one on the death of Marilyn. I started reading his books. He was wonderful. He used to work with Melvin Belli. He was the legal correspondent for multiple MSM news stations, CNN being one of them. That guy would like, we have a big court case. Let's bring in Mark Shaw and ask him what he thinks. That guy, the person that comes on and gives his opinion. He's a terrific man. He takes a lot of flack in the JFK analysis among the experts because he goes in through the Dorothy Kilgallen door. And I tend to look at the whole JFK situation like a big dark hallway with a lot of doors. We can all see this like dim light at the end, and we know what's down there. It's a man who, for whoever he was in his private life, to his wife, to his womanizing girlfriend, whatever he was doing, he was a man that was trying to get some things done and kind of went against the grain a little. We'll dive into that. But regardless of what he did, whether he was saving people on PT 109 or telling the generals of the military industrial complex that no, we're not going to pull off Project Northwoods and some of these other things that they were trying to, the stuff that they okayed to pull off, would spin your head around. And this was back in 62, from the Bay of Pigs to his arguments and fights with the unions and organized crime and his father's deep and dark dealings. I kind of started there with Mark. He wrote a book called The Poison Patriot. No, excuse me, Poison Patriarch. And that was about Joe Kennedy, the father, who was quite the character. And that's how I met Mark. And then we started talking about the reporter who knew too much, and that was Dorothy Kilgallen, and how she was friends with JFK. She was also friends with Marilyn. Not as tight with Marilyn, but she had seen her 3 or 4 times in within 6 months of her death, both of their deaths, which were both shady as AF. And, so we dug into those and Dorothy's, knowledge of the conspiracy, because at this point, we have to start admitting it was a conspiracy, not a theory. There was conspiracy, multiple conspiracies, multiple cover-ups, multiple plans, and, some real chicanery going on all around that. So, as far as doors in the hallway in the JFK murder, hey, Scott's Life, good to see you, honey. Um, that's one door that I leave cracked open, because this is why I call it a tapestry. It's a tapestry. I think most people who are looking into the JFK, for whatever reason, um, issue is, most of the time they're trying to make a quilt. They're trying to put together a quilt. They've got these patches of theories and facts and information and stories, and they all come to make together to make this big old lovely quilt. But I think people tend to go towards the patches that match the pattern, or maybe go with the colors or the feel or the whatever. And they're still, although they're all one, they're still kind of separate in their own way. And people tend to cling on to those patches instead of realizing this is a big quilt that all goes together. The reason I call it a tapestry is tapestry isn't patches. It's a series of threads that come together and all work together to create one picture. That's why I look at it like that. Right. Exactly, Marie. So that's why I'm calling this series Tapestry. So what I decided to do is the best way to deal with the JFK facts, theories, conspiracy fact, is to walk down this hallway and we'll go through a door. And we'll understand that that doorway is a thread and not a patch. We don't have to try to force it into the quilt and, stitch it in to make it stay. We take the thread and we weave it in and we see the picture that it makes. I think that's a good way to look at this. I don't want to say I've been hard studying it for as long as Ghost. Certainly not. But it's been something that's been in my life. I was under a year old when he was murdered at approximately 12:30 in the afternoon, Dallas, right in the middle of everybody. And the most interesting thing I think about all of it is not how people approach it, but how people gather their facts and information and then surround it like it's a newborn baby, and they don't want to come off of the facts or budge this way. Here's an example, and it's not a criticism, it's an example, because I certainly wouldn't criticize somebody with the talent and what he has put into this. This is not a criticism against Oliver Stone, but Oliver Stone will go so far up and then stop. And here lately, he's been kind of budging a little bit, but he doesn't want to, that one door, he doesn't want to open and look at I guess the light's too bright, even though it fits his quilt. See? And then somebody will bring up, like I said, Mark Shaw. Mark Shaw will go in through the Dorothy Kilgallen door. And then there's people over on the other side, experts, that have called him a lunatic and a fraud and all these other things because Dorothy Kilgallen had nothing to do with it. Well, there's some very significant stuff there. I've dealt very deeply with Mark and others into Dorothy Kilgallen's death, and what was going on there, and why she went to New Orleans, and why she went and talked to Marcello, and all of that, and Bobby Kennedy's connections to Marcello and their battle, all of these things. And I think, again, it gets very confusing because, like I said, people are looking at it like a quilt. They can only see the pattern of their square, the coloring of their square, and sometimes they don't want to come off of that, and they seem to fight like, if I believe your fact, my facts can't be true. And I look at all of this and I think so much of it is not mutually exclusive. They can all be happening at the same time if we look at it 40,000-foot view. And I think paranormal people, people that are into the paranormal and used to trying to discern whether a house is actually haunted or if it's the people or if there's some kind of mental illness or if it's on, you know, it's got a bad history, a haunted history, something happened on the land, something happened to the people and they brought it in, whatever it may be. We're constantly trying to solve these mysteries. And the JFK entire situation is more than a mystery. It's this tapestry of events and people that started a ball rolling in their area, and a lot of them snowballed out. Um, and I think it's very interesting to look at the threads. And then once we look at each thread, we can back up and look and see what our tapestry picture looks like. So that's why I'm calling it tapestry. We're going to pull on a couple of those threads. And that's also another reason I started the Rumble channel. So just don't go over there and sign up for the Rumble channel for that. But I'm going to start doing these shows that they're probably not going to allow me to have on these other channels. So we're going to try to slowly move those shows over to Rumble so we can have free speech and show some videos and some clips and things like that that are really going to help us understand each thread. And they're not going to allow that on YouTube. So we're also going to celebrate free speech, and we're going to go over there and we're going to watch our movies and we're going to learn from these wonderful movies that are out there and talk about it live in the chat and learn from each other. And we're going to do the same thing with Tapestry, the JFK, the murder of a president. It's extremely interesting. It's also has new life thrown into it with the JFK files being released and a lot of them declassified, very much so. I have been looking into those. I'll tell you, hey, Vixen Doe, I tell you, I'm very disappointed in people who the first day, I'll never forget it, the first day, the first batch, which is quite a bit of information. I mean, I think there's like 80,000 files, and each file has its own, it's not just 80,000 pages, it's 80,000 files. This is a lot of stuff to go through. And you had all of these channels on YouTube and on Rumble. They came out the first day. And I'm just so disappointed. This is a nothing burger. There's nothing in it. Dude, you did not go through 80,000 files. They're not even all released yet. So to come on your channel and clickbait and do the faces, like I hate that. Oh, I hate it so much. Don't you hate it? The clickbaity faces. Come on. And it's like 2 hours after the first ones are released, and they saw one thing that said Russian ambassador spoke to this one, and right away, Russia did it. No. And something else got released, and so, oh, this proves that. Hold on a minute. You don't realize that connects to something that came out 20 years ago, and blah, 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 and follow the yellow brick road, buddy. If you're going to dive down a rabbit hole, you better be equipped, because you're going to get some dirt in your eyes. You're going to get blinded if you just jump on the first thing and make your assumption in the first 2 hours after some files have been released. And now you've got it all figured out after 60 years. Stop it. You don't have it all figured out. But I'll tell you some people who are darn close to having it figured out, and we will share them down the road. Some of them I have been watching or reading their work for decades. Some are just coming out and really taking a wonderful approach at looking at the information with an open mind. And then you've got some that are coming out this week and absolutely doubling down on the whole Oswald did it alone. Listen, at this point, I don't know what you got going on, but you're certainly not paying attention. You haven't opened enough doors. Hey, Mud, welcome in. You haven't opened enough doors. So I hope you'll be here for Tapestry. It'll probably be all the way through spring, maybe even into summer, because I'm not going to just throw out an episode half baked. I want to really dig into it. There's a lot of doors, people. There's a lot of doors. We are going to include Dorothy Kilgallen. We are going to include Marilyn Monroe. Um, I'm not, I'm nobody. I'm just somebody, look, these are my theories, my opinion based on the facts that you can look at and you can research all you want. Um, and you come up with your own theories. But people are omitting big chunks of this because, like I said, it doesn't fit their quilt. And I think all the threads are important. If we pull on a thread and down the line, a couple episodes later, we go, not so much. I love Bill Cooper. And Bill Cooper got a hold of a video where he says it's the chauffeur turned around and shot him. Listen, I can't say that's not true. I don't know where the film came from. I'm not Bill Cooper. I love the things that Bill Cooper said. A lot of the things he said, I think he was a groundbreaker in a lot of ways, just like so many other people. We're going to take that into consideration. But does that thread fit? Is it something that actually happened and existed, or is it a film that was taken and manipulated? What's the provenance on that film? What is the what is the chain of custody on that? Is this a film that NBC had and it sat, for 40 years and then you got it back chopped up and it's missing frames and, it's not fitting? You have to really discount stuff like that because we don't know where it came from. Certainly Zapruder wasn't the only one taking films that day. There was plenty of cameras confiscated, but there's also a lot of red herrings. Some of the craziest things I think are true. The craziest thing is the amount of people that were killed to keep them quiet. So if you ever wonder if someone who thinks that they're doing for the greater good or national security or for, sacrifice the 100 to save the 1,000, all of these things come into play of this isn't working out my way. This person's in my way. We're going to take this person out so I can achieve this. Well, that's a story as old as time. That's a power play. And if you have somebody a narcissist or a psychopath that will just take out all the obstacles in their way without compunction and without morals or anything can be happening. And that's the scariest thing. Scariest thing is the things human beings do to each other. And again, tale as old as time. So I think it'll be interesting. I hope you'll be here for it. I think our first one is going to be tomorrow. I'd like to kick open a couple of doors. And a door that's really important to me is who had the power, who benefited from it, who could pull it off. It's a lot to pull off. And I'm going to tell you, it wasn't one. And I think some of the things we see as we look back, that calamity of, oh, this can't be true. Oh, yeah, it can. Oh, yeah, it can. Because the oddest things are true in this story. And I'm going to look at people like Mark Grobert, who has spent his whole life looking at this. Do I agree with everything he says? No, I'm sure he wouldn't either. He'd probably call me a lunatic and slam the door in my face. But he deserves the respect of the work he's done. I think he's got a wonderful mind. I love his anecdotes. He is mostly now on a show called History's Untold Stories. Fantastic stories, wonderful channel. It's on YouTube, it's on Locals, it's probably on Rumble. If you're not subscribed to it, I highly recommend it. Yeah, exactly, Renice. I mean, I'm telling you, it's going to be something. But so there it is. Well, didn't NBC release a video? They're trying to get them to release that video. NBC has supposedly been holding a video that shows Oswald standing on the street as the motorcade goes by. However, I've not seen the video. I have seen what I've been told are pictures and snapshots taken from that shows who we think could be Oswald standing there. There's also that supposedly came from that video, I believe. And there's another one that says that Papa Bush was standing there. And of course, he's the only one that didn't know where he was when Kennedy was shot. Supposedly he was making a phone call in Fort Worth, I believe. But that's off the top of my head. Don't hold me to it. But the city, not the fact that he doesn't know where the hell he was when JFK was shot. Ask anybody that if they were alive that day, where they were, they'll tell you. Anyhow, the scariest thing about it all is I think we can look back over recent events not too long ago that parallel in a lot of ways. The scariest part is it's still going on, folks. Maybe not all the same players, but the same theme, the same tentacles, the same dark alleys. So there you go. So Tapestry will probably start tomorrow. We have Michelle and Stephanie are coming back. I hope they're going to be here once a month. I really want you guys to get to know them. They're fantastic people. They do wonderful things, readings and pet communication, just all kinds of stuff. I'll let them tell you about it. They've been on here a few times, and I'm hoping that we can all get back on track to where we have them here once a month. Lynn should be back here at the end of the month, and those other 2 days we're gonna just keep mixing it up. So thank you for being here. Thank you for connecting over to Rumble. If you're not connected into Rumble, guys, I see you over here. Thank you for being here, everybody over there on Rumble and on Facebook. We are going to eventually switch over to YouTube, Rumble, and X. And then on our shows that we can't have on YouTube, we're just going to be Rumble and X. So there's our house cleaning for that. I was very excited to find this. Now, I put this together a couple weeks ago, and I finished it up today. Thank you, Ted. Here it is right here. Just hit it and get over there. Doesn't cost a dime. I also, and I don't know, should I show it to you? All right, I'm going to show it to you. I'm still working on it. Let me see if I can find it here. But for my members that are on Rumble, now I don't ask you guys for a thing. Please don't do this unless you can. But for the members over there, I wanted to do a little something fun. I had been kicking around doing autographed books. I do these wonderful copper and crystal moons. They're Swarovski crystals or gemstones. And we're going to do a little raffle. And I don't want to exclude anybody, but if you've ever put in a chat, a super chat, because we are totally demonetized on YouTube. So if you've put in a super chat, over on Rumble, or you've donated money through my PayPal or one of the other things, I'm going to try to get everybody's name on this, but I'm working on this. It's just a test run. Let me see if I can do this. Get this up here. And I don't want to leave. Did I do it? Did I mess up? I did. Hit the wrong button. Goodness. Put the seatbelts on. But anyway, I'll work on that. I have a spinning wheel. And when you spin it, it's you put everybody's name on it. Come on. All right. What in the heck is going on here? Let me try this again. What in the world? What the heck? Choo-choo, baby. Anyway, it's a spinning wheel, and it's really cool. And then whoever it lands on, you're going to get your pick. of the two things that I put up here. I wanted to give you a couple things, like I think everybody can use a really pretty sun catcher to put in your window or something, to start out with. So it's handmade by me. I don't have them up and ready here to show you, but that's what I'm working on. As I know it sounds like I say a lot of things like I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, something gets in the way, and I just wanted you to know I'm still on it. I'm still on it. Thank you for being over on Rumble, honey. Like I said, you're missing good movies. It's great to get in there and watch a movie and have everybody's, like we're making fun of Adrian and her Barbeaus and all that. But what a great storyline that is. I mean, you do people wrong like that, there's some comeuppance. So anyway, I hit the wrong button and I lost all my videos. So let me go ahead and download my slides. Let me get those back on here. Do sing amongst yourselves. Maybe start a little row, row, row you boat. Okay, there's my slides. And need my video. All right, so tonight I was digging around and I was looking for old documentaries because some of them are really good. We've gone back and looked at In Search Of and Sightings, and I can't show Unsolved Mysteries over on Rumble. I could, but the wonderful Australian show, The Extraordinary with Warwick Moss. I've gotten a lot of great stories out of there. This one, I got lucky and found it. It's really good, and I love. There's a parapsychologist in here. I was trying to look him up before the show. I can't find anything on him. So if anybody's out there in Australia or in the UK and you've seen this, it's called, believe it's called The Haunted. It was definitely done and released in Australia on the Australian television. And there is a parapsychologist in here. And just, isn't it always the thing? It seems to me that when you go back to the 70s, 80s, 90s, you were getting some really good information on these documentaries. You were getting a couple of people discussing a case and really giving you some information to chew on. It wasn't just somebody coming out and going, "Oh, everybody's hallucinating," or the refrigerator flew across the kitchen because the 13-year-old girl had psychokinesis. It's PK. And again, it might be. I doubt a refrigerator, but you get the idea. These people really dug into and seemed like they were really embracing the paranormal, the wonder of it all, rather than just tossing it away. And I think that causes a better discussion, a better communication about what's going on in the paranormal and the supernatural. That's my idea. And I think that's why I dig these so much. I was really surprised with this one because I was looking up stuff for one of the most boring haunts there could be, if there is such a thing. Would have to say, okay, it's residual. And, boring is probably not the correct word to use for that. But as far as a residual of, okay, the lady in white goes up the stairs, twice a year, you'll see her on, during a storm, a thunderstorm, whatever the legend may be. The Crybaby Bridge, you might hear the child crying, or you might see the woman standing on the bridge or something along those lines. But the ghost never interacts with anybody. It never seems like they notice anybody. They don't change their pattern. It's the same thing over and over again. And a lot of people say this is residual. They add in stone tape theory and stuff like that. And I don't mean that that's the most boring thing, but it's more like you're not going to communicate with this ghost. There's no essence there that has intelligence that's going to, it's just a picture. It's like watching a movie, no more than having a film playing on a wall. And then there's a mixture of those with, it almost seems like it's residual, and then all of a sudden something looks at you or says something to you. I think those are more, now this is my own theory, but I think those are more projections where the ghost is actually showing you what happened to communicate, and then somehow finding another way to communicate with you, either audibly or, a touch or something along those lines, where you see them manifest, that kind of stuff. They're trying to find a way to communicate with you. Um, I think that's similar. Sorry, guys. I think that is similar to the scene that we saw in Poltergeist, where the guy's looking in the mirror and his face starts falling apart, or he's looking at the steak and he sees maggots and steak starts moving and that kind of thing. That's more of a telepathic kind of manifestation. They're making you see it. It's not real. I've had a couple of those, and it looks, just when you're going through it, you believe it's real. You absolutely do. You might smell the fire, you might feel the fire, and then all of a sudden everything's gone, or whatever it may be. I think those are different. I think it's a different way. They might be using the same avenue to give you that information, but I think it's for a different reason, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, what's going on in the chat? Everybody good? Oh, chocolate chip cookies. Who's got cookies? Are they still warm out of the refrigerator? I mean, out of the oven? Warm out of the refrigerator. That makes perfect sense. Candy corn looks like a candle. You know it does? Candy corn does look like a candle flame. All right, so I found this. It's really cool. I don't have any information on it. There was no information in the description. I don't know what year it's from. It looks early 90s, maybe even as far as the 80s. I don't know the parapsychologist. I'm really digging his thoughts, though. He's not as gruff and harsh and distinct as, say, a Hans Holzler, who you would take him that way because he had this Austrian kind of demeanor. But he was just sure about what he thought. This guy takes a general approach. He's almost a little bit like a laid back, oh, what's his name, with the dark mustache and the white hair, the psychic. I know it as well as my own. It'll come to me. But he was on Sightings a lot. Peter James. Thank you. Who was that? That was pretty cool. So anyway, Peter James. And he would explain things matter of factly, but he had a more friendly approach to it. This guy is somewhere in the middle. I'm really liking him. And the first story, I love their approach to it. It's 3 ladies in a house, a haunted house, and each one, the way they experienced the haunt and brought their ideas of what they experienced, what they thought. Scary medium too. Yeah, he worked, Hans Holzer worked with Sybil Leek and Ethel Myers. And they were both trance mediums, and absolutely fantastic because the spirit could channel through them, and Hans could just talk right to him and move right through it, and be able to, talk him off the ledge, basically, in a lot of ways. It's pretty cool. So this guy is good. I love the first story. We'll watch it together. If you have snacks, have at it. Get your tea, get your adult beverage, get your, warm milk, whatever you're drinking, and sit back and enjoy. And let's talk about what's going on here, because all of these are learning experiences. I mean, that's really all we can do in the paranormal, is discuss cases and history and information and evidence that we've found, evidence that we think we found, what was going on around it. And we're just, after all these decades and centuries, really, how far have we gotten? And my theory is, I think we're a lot further along than we think. But just like the JFK situation, and that, cacophony of facts and false flags and outright lies, that's what's happened to the paranormal. And it seems like when we reach back to these shows, we're getting a little bit more of that feeling back in it, a little bit more of that breathing room where we can really talk about a case and learn from it. And I think that's kind of cool. So this whole thing is about an hour. We're going to try to get as much in as we can, but this first one is about 10 minutes. Let's enjoy. Thanks for being here. Hit the like. And if you're not on Rumble, get over there because you're going to miss a good movie. I think
is still struggling to unlock the secrets of the universe. But we've come a long way from the idea that we exist. Is still struggling to unlock the secrets of the universe. But we've come a long way from the idea that we exist in a kind of giant machine, controlled by ancient laws of time and motion. Some of the world's leading physicists, biologists, and psychologists no longer scoff at the idea of ghosts. They believe that beyond the material world lies a universal consciousness in which almost anything is possible. So we ask you to keep an open mind as we investigate what may at first seem unbelievable. The idea that a mysterious energy, something beyond our understanding of life and death, can be trapped inside a building. We are on a journey into the unknown, which with its twists and turns will explore both the new frontiers of science and the hidden depths of the human mind. And every place we visit will have the reputation of being haunted.
They really go to great lengths to, have the people sign a, I'm not lying letter and just everything. So it's haunted out of Australia.
People throughout history have experienced ghosts, and every country in the world has its haunted houses. But we are going to concentrate on Australia, a vast continent of remote deserts, modern cities, and ruins with a brutal convict past. Ghosts have been seen in every state of Australia by hundreds of seemingly credible witnesses. The most frightening of all hauntings can often be where people still live, in ordinary suburban houses. You might have had the feeling yourself that there is something odd about the atmosphere of a house, an intuition that the past somehow lingers on, or the fleeting sensation that you're being watched. That's exactly how 3 young Queensland women felt when they moved into a rented house in the Brisbane suburb of Barton. The 50-year-old building had no reputation of being haunted, so there was no reason for them to feel apprehensive or afraid. But they began to have strange experiences when left alone in the house. At first, each girl thought it was her own imagination and kept it to herself, not wanting to frighten the others. Now they're convinced there is a supernatural force in the building, and they are terrified of it.
I heard footsteps one night and walked out into the kitchen to speak to whoever was there, and there was nobody there, and I mentioned it the next morning. That's when I was told that there had been things happening in the house like that.
How often do you hear footsteps?
Every day. Every night I hear them, and if I'm home during the day, I'll hear them then as well.
Are you sure that they're footsteps? They're not creaking? They're not the wind?
No, they're definite footsteps.
Stick to your guns, girl. No, they're footsteps, man.
When you are in the house, you never really do feel alone. If you are on your own, you can always feel something else there.
We've heard footsteps in the house, and as well a couple of times I've felt like I've had hands on my chest here and through my hair.
Is that why you've been in bed?
Yeah.
Were you half asleep and half awake while that was happening?
No, I was wide awake. Just as I jumped into bed, it happened. Over the last, say, 2 months, it sort of stepped up, and now I do feel it. I sort of a bit scared going to sleep in that.
So far, we've heard only furtive suggestions that the house may be haunted. A build-up of fear, which could make people imagine footsteps or something brushing against them at night. It was the third girl, Helen McLennan, who was the first to actually see a ghost.
One night I was just lying in bed and I just woke up. Like I didn't hear anything, I just woke up. And I just looked from my bed to my wardrobe and saw a shape there, like a white figure. And I sort of, shut my eyes and thought, this is really silly, and opened them again and thought, it could be a street light, wasn't, checked that out. Could be the next door neighbour's light, wasn't, checked that out. And I thought, well, there's something there.
One night I woke up for some reason. I'd been asleep for a little while, and I've got a missing louver in my room, and I was staring out of that, and there's a tree just outside my bedroom, and I saw what looked to be like a man sitting in the tree, and at first I thought I was seeing things because I'd just woken up, so I tried to blink it away, and then it wouldn't go, so I sat up in my bed and stared at it, and there was definitely something there. It appeared to be like a skeletal form, just a very skinny, naked figure, and it was, for the whole time I was watching it, it was looking up at the sky and then looking back through the window at me.
So creepy.
Did that 5 or 6 times.
So creepy.
Hallucinations are something that you see and they go away, but this wasn't. I made a point of looking at it, and I was staring at it for about 4 minutes. I formed the impression that it's somebody that was living here that has died, but probably isn't aware of it himself, because the noises you hear, like the front gate creaking, the footsteps in all different parts of the house, it seems to be that he's still living here with us.
Well,
There's nothing terribly remarkable or unique about the 3 girls' claims. In fact, there are thousands of similar cases all around the world. Most people dismiss such stories, especially those involving young women living alone, as imagination, triggered by branches blowing in the wind, shadows, creaking floorboards, and a fear of the unknown. Yet there are reasons to believe that Maria did actually see something crouching in the tree outside her bedroom window, saw it clearly, watched it move, and experienced real terror. She has described it in precise detail, and has nothing to gain and everything to lose by lying about it.
That's so creepy.
Like
Reminds
all
me
the
of
witnesses in
Cuthbert.
this program, she received no payment, yet was willing to risk being ridiculed for telling her story on television. The real question is, was the ghost crouching in the branches an hallucination which existed only in Maria's mind, or did it have a reality of its own? Even psychiatrists can't explain why some buildings seem to produce ghosts, even if they are hallucinations, and other buildings don't. The puzzling fact is that some Australian hauntings go back more than a century, and during that time, generations of people with no connection to each other have seen a ghost in the same building.
There it is.
In this documentary,
More than
you will
one.
meet 28 people, including scientists and policemen, who claim to have seen a ghost, and the apparitions will be recreated exactly as they describe them. You can decide for yourself whether or not the ghosts are real, but your guide will be a scientist who has devoted many years to researching such things as hauntings.
I love how they say that. I don't know, Vixen. It could have been, but the way she described it, if you heard what he just said, they're trying, this documentary specifically seems to really be trying to dispel all of the theories of, okay, these people are doing it for money. They're telling their story for money. They're telling their story because they want attention. They made them sign a letter that says they were telling the truth. They went to great lengths to try and also recreate these things the way they were told that they happened. So that takes, in my book, that raises it much higher than a lot of these shows that add in for effect, because we can't learn from something that's made up. You know, she said that she was walking down the hallway and the ghost reached out from the room and grabbed her. She didn't say there was 30 demons in the hallway and she was struggling to get through like a gauntlet, you know, which is how they would perceive it today. in paranormal shows and stuff. So I think it's great the way that they're doing it, but I don't know if it could have been an animal. I only know what she was saying, and she seemed to describe it like a skeletal figure that was looking at the sky and then looked back at her and then looked back at the sky again, almost like it was trying to just acknowledge her, or maybe it was trying to point something out, or, you know, you could read a lot into it. Don't know. But to me, creepy. First of all, what are you doing in the tree? Second of all, what are you doing looking at me? You know, so that's what I'm thinking about it. But I think it's cool the way they went about it. Very much like an old sightings, or I wouldn't say unsolved mysteries as much, but they were close. But with sightings, they would do the same thing. They would, you know, this person has nothing to gain from it. They were reluctant to tell the story. They never changed the story. We're telling you exactly, we're recreating it exactly like they described, that kind of thing. They're not blowing it out of proportion, which is cool.
A depth psychologist who moved to Australia 25 years ago after objecting to the system of apartheid in South Africa. He became a senior lecturer in abnormal and therapeutic psychology at the University of New England in New South Wales, and has degrees in psychology, the arts, and education. But he was also one of the first people in the world to qualify in parapsychology, the recognized scientific study of the supernatural. Dr. Maurice Marsh is no ordinary ghost hunter.
You know, there's no doubt that people do actually see ghosts. Hundreds of ordinary, everyday Australians from all walks of life have seen them.
Now, has anybody else ever heard of this guy before? I think he said, did he say Warwick Morse? I don't know what he said. Let me see if I can go right back and see if you repeat it again. One more chance. If you guys pick it up and you know this guy, let me know about it, because I couldn't find anything on him.
That people do actually see ghosts. Hundreds of
Scientific study of the supernatural. Dr. Maurice Marsh is no ordinary ghost hunter.
You know,
Maurice
there's
Narst?
no doubt that people do actually see ghosts. Hundreds of ordinary, everyday Australians from all walks of life have seen them. I found that about 1 in 5 of my students had had some kind of psychic experience. Of course, there are many different kinds of ghosts. Poltergeists, some appear to be the spirits of dead people, others again the telepathic projection of people's thoughts, and some appear to exist merely in a sort of time warp. Those are only some of the possibilities. But let's start with the kind of ghost that we've all heard about, and that's the apparition that traditionally haunts Old English castles. You might be surprised to hear that Australia, although a relatively young society, has what might be called historic haunts.
Very cool. I like him already.
Some believe that ghosts are the tortured souls of people long dead, and are spirits condemned to haunt the places where they suffered or sinned in life. If that is true, then there can be no better place to look than Port Arthur convict settlement in Tasmania, a place once described as hell on earth. More than a century ago, shiploads of convicts, men, women, and children, were transported here from England for crimes which could be as petty as stealing a loaf of bread. At Port Arthur, these prisoners were often subjected to the most inhuman treatment imaginable, chained for weeks at a time, forbidden to speak, whipped, or even hanged for their misdemeanors. Death was often the only escape from the tyranny of British colonial law. Port Arthur was guarded by armed sentries and savage bulldogs chained together on a narrow isthmus separating the prison from the mainland. Convicts were forced to suffer or die here, not in their hundreds, but in their thousands. And many people who now work in the gloomy ruins of Port Arthur believe that ghosts haunt the settlement. The building with the most haunted reputation is the parsonage, erected in 1842 by order of the colonial secretary. The parsonage and all other historic buildings in the old convict settlement are now being restored by the Tasmanian government as the Port Arthur Conservation Project. These building contractors used to believe that ghosts are invented by people with wild imaginations. But their attitude changed dramatically when they were given the job of renovating the old parsonage. The men lived several hours' drive away in Launceston, and so they decided to sleep overnight in the parsonage during the contract period.
It was quite often that as we were coming on down the back section there, we could hear this knocking noise, and well, to me it sounded as though it was coming from the roof. I wasn't the only one that heard it. At different stages, we all heard it.
When I first came down here, it was sort of was a bit of a joke between all the blokes, you know, and by the time we left the place, it was no longer a joke. It got pretty serious.
We'd just suddenly go cold, and you could feel the cold coming through you.
At this stage, did you believe in ghosts?
No. No, I never ever believed in ghosts at all.
What was the most dramatic thing that happened to you then?
Well, there was one night I came down from the hotel, we had tea, and we were walking, well, I was by myself, I was walking down from the hotel, and went through the kitchen and went to the room where I was sleeping, and I went to put the light on, and as I put the light on, I just got this glimpse of this image of a woman in the corner. I could see right through, I could see the wall behind her, and my bed. You know, I just said, well, you're seeing things, and I tried to convince myself that it was my mind. It was a light, probably, as I switched the light on. But as I started to undress to go to bed, I took my overalls off. I just taken the straps off, and I was standing by the fire, and all of a sudden the curtains came flying off the wall. I'd never believed in ghosts, and I still sometimes think, well, perhaps I was seeing things, but I still think about the curtains. I mean, there's no way they could have come off like they did.
Mike Smith's description of a sudden drop in temperature, an unexplained chill in the atmosphere, is something noticed by many other witnesses just before a ghost appears. The next witness, Craig Goodwin, describes a peculiar experience which scientists call sleep paralysis. It's a terrifying phenomenon, also known as the hag effect, which temporarily paralyzes its victims with the sensation that a ghost is sitting on their chest, trying to suffocate them. Psychologists estimate that about 1 in every 7 people have had the experience, and you'll find it repeated in other haunted houses.
On this particular night, I was in bed asleep, and I don't normally wake up during the night anyway. And when I realised that I was awake, the brain more or less told the rest of the body to sit up, sort of thing. And that was it. I couldn't move, you know. It was like as if I was just paralysed.
But he sort of looked like he was trying to get away. He sort of had his hands coming up in the front of him. As I put the light on, I could see the shadow of him doing it beforehand, but when I put the light on, as soon as I put the light on, he'd sort of come straight up on the bed and he was trying to strangle me.
Many people will dismiss the builder's story as nonsense and say they jumped at shadows after working themselves into a state of fear over the old building. But they're not the only ones to report ghostly happenings at the parsonage. And phantoms seem to have haunted the same site for at least 112 years. An architect, an archaeologist, and an historical botanist employed by the restoration project also claimed to have had strange experiences at Port Arthur. A ghost was first recorded here by a visitor from Hobart, George Grunsell, who stayed in the parsonage as a guest in 1874.
You guys are talking about, I love that. I love the information we get in the chats. So we haven't been able to pull anything up on the parapsychologist, and I think he's fantastic. I really like everything he said throughout this whole documentary. Have you guys ever seen this documentary? If that's what it is, it may have been, just a one-off show in Australia. I'm not sure, but interesting find, right? It's really cool. Love how they're digging into all the different stuff. I like his take, the way he offers multiple explanations. It could be this, it could be this. Think about it. I love people who say, here's some information, research for yourself, see if you can see another experience. Maybe your experience was like that, because really that's what we're all here for, to try to learn from each other's experiences. And if we, like I said many times on this show, if you embellish it, if you stretch it out, if you change it in any way, it's no longer a teaching tool, it's a story. Stories are wonderful, but you see where I'm coming? I'm digging this so far. I hope you are too.
Grunsell wrote about it in his memoirs.
The judge, Sir Valentine Fleming, was a fellow guest at the parsonage when a most intense light streamed from under the door of a room on the opposite side of the landing. Sir Valentine peeked through the keyhole, and to his astonishment could see the interior as though brilliantly lighted up with gas, when lo and behold, all was in sudden darkness again. The next manifestation was rather startling. A servant girl entering the guest room let out a terrific shriek and fell senseless to the boards. She had distinctly seen the figure of a man in a peculiar garment looking at her through the window and grasping in his hand a knife or dagger which he held as though about to strike.
If many people experience noises, lights, and apparitions in the same building, it's very difficult to say that they're all merely imagining it. In fact, there are many theories to account for haunts, and one of them is called the psychic ether hypothesis. This theory suggests that an intense emotional experience, like the suffering of the convicts at Port Arthur, can somehow alter the space in which it's released. It's almost as if the energy of those long-dead convicts had somehow embedded itself in the surroundings, and under favourable circumstances could play itself over and over again like a video recording. Many people that have psychic experiences don't talk about them for fear of being thought odd or laughed at. But those who witness ghosts are often the very people in our society who are appointed to investigate facts honestly and objectively.
Wow. Okay, well, that's just part one. And like I said, I think it's pretty cool. He was talking about things. And again, sometimes people are talking about the same stuff we've talked about 100 times, but they look at it a little different. They maybe, take a different path to get to the same place, but we pick up a little information along the way. I think it was, his surname was Marsh, Marsh. That's what I got. Now, the only other thing I can do is go back to the YouTube video and put in closed caption and see what it comes up with, but they're not always correct. So I don't know. And I did a quick research on them, and I couldn't pick up anything either, even in AI. But I may not have been spelling it right or something else. Maybe Ted's onto something here with him being. I've been putting in Australian, so maybe it'd be different if we put it in English. I don't know. But I had never heard of him in all my time. And I haven't been able to find anybody else that I've talked to in the past 3 days that have heard anything about him. So if somebody pulls up something fantastic, throw it in the chat. I'd love to hear. Because if he's got a book out or something else, like Dr. Raymond Moody, he's been out there for decades. And not that he changed so much toward the end, he gained so much over the decades, but he looked at it a little different. He enriched his thoughts and his theories. And if this guy did, I'd like to hear it, So let me see if I lost some stuff when we went out with the wrong button, but I think I can do this and pull up the rest of this. Y'all want to see more of this? It's a good one. There's a couple of good stories in here that are very interesting. There's one that's similar to the Enfield poltergeist, where there was a lot of witnesses, that I found very interesting on this one. So let's share the screen and see. How y'all doing? Who's going to be here for Tapestry tomorrow night? I get it straight from the Stockton's mouth that they are unpacking still. They have unpacked the baby. All is well. They are loving their new digs, and he should be back next week. I told him he's got to unpack the computer because I miss him terrible. Oh, wait. Do you have something, Henry? Great. Hang on one second. Let me pull this up, and I'll see what you're saying. Get this set. Okay. Let me see. Get back over here to you guys. Whew, everything worked. All the right buttons. Now, what are you saying? All right. What did they found? Morris Marsh on encyclopedia.com. Maurice Clement Marsh. Oh, he's still alive. God bless him. Wow. Now, does it say that he's a parapsychologist? Because he was calling himself that. Yep. No seatbelts. No seatbelts yet. Hit me. Excellent. Yeah, me too. I want to know if there's any books or more documentaries. I do too, Froze. How you doing out there, buddy, in beautiful Tennessee? I miss the South so bad, honey. I do. I could use some good sweet tea, some Southern fried chicken, and some Southern fried hugs. You know what I'm saying? Lord have mercy. This girl, I might have been born up north, but my heart is in the South. Okay, you're going to try to be here? Oh, for tomorrow. Yeah, you don't want to miss this because, man, Lisa, I'm just going to pull off the Band-Aid. I've had it. And here's the thing. There's not too many people that I know that would sit down and have a serious conversation with me about the JFK assassination. I've had a few. Mark Shaw is no slouch, believe me. And wonderful gentleman. Just so intelligent and so I love his law mind, his legal intelligence is, people like that just, like I'm a real Stephen Miller fan. I could sit here, I could listen to Stephen Miller talk all day. Tell me civics, please. I swear I could. But they've gotten to a point, and here's the thing, it's not their fault. They have gotten to the point, I believe, and it's just my theory, where they're tired of the bullshit. They're so tired. They're so over it. I mean, look at Oliver Stone. He's in there at this congressional committee, if that's what you want to call it, with all the grandstanding and the BS, to think if somebody would have the loathsome demeanor and character and lack of morals, common sense, and common dignity to sit in a congressional hearing 60 plus years in the making of the murdering of an American president in broad daylight, quite officially done with inside hands as well as outside hands and maneuvers, and make it about you. And call yourself any kind of official that's speaking for the constituents, and to use that time to grandstand and to bring in other subjects or whatever, and not treat that time with some type of reverence for the love of God. It blows my mind. And you could see the panel that came, the experts, and not saying they aren't, I'm just saying that's what they're called, on this JFK shooting with their theories, and they're standing solid on their theories. But they came together to say, these documents are now showing such and such, A is now connected to B. Here we added in, there's more now. Here's a letter here, there's more. We know for a fact that there was a conversation on this date between these people, and that must be released as well. Or we're not releasing all of it. They're saying things like this. They're saying what their theories are. And most of them, I would say the 4 people that were on the panel, the prominent ones, were all of the mind of Oswald didn't do it. It's absolutely ludicrous. And they're bringing up points about the Warren, report. Please don't get me started. That's a big door. And, different hands in the pot of the, who could do it, who did it, whatever. They really didn't come. It wasn't a committee where they came to a conclusion. They were basically saying, we're here now. We need the rest. We're aware that there's more. You need to dig for it. And then everybody got their say, which should have never happened, in my opinion, because of previously stated comments I just made. So I don't think any of those people would sit down and have a conversation with me, but I've had conversations with others, Jim Mars for one. And like I said, Mark Shaw and several others, and here recently, Brad Olson. And it just boggles my mind, and that we're still 60 years and nobody is. If we could all just meet in a room and say, look, your theory can exist with my theory. All of these things happen. Can we just agree that probably the only person that didn't shoot Kennedy was Oswald? Let's stop telling the lies. That the sixth floor book depository museum is a joke, and everybody will tell you that. The people that died trying to tell the truth. There's actually an individual in this story who was found with enough carbon monoxide to knock out a bull in his lungs, and his bloodstream or whatever, and was shot 5 times in the back and in the head with a bolt action rifle, and it was deemed a suicide. This is the people you're dealing with. And that is connected. That story is connected to the JFK killing, in my opinion. And we'll get to that. Oh, absolutely no. But the thing is it's, again, I wish we could all just get in a room and say, look, we have the pieces. If we could just get together, we could come up with a solution here and get all the names without a doubt. And let's bring up, that Hitler didn't kill himself. I was on this show 3 years ago telling you that the Nazis went to Argentina. I showed you towns where they're still speaking German. But again, this is the year where we bring it all out. It all comes out, all the facts on the table, warts and all. No more bullshit. And let's march on into whatever future we have together, being chill to each other. Because what's past is past. Put it out on the front. Justice be done, and don't repeat it, because we have to learn from history, right? That's my opinion. It's the same in the paranormal. Let's get it all out there. We've got AI coming. We've got CGI. We've got people lying. We've got people making up stories. We got AI making up stories and people making money on it. Now, YouTube is flooded with these AI films that they're putting together, and it's not even a person behind it anymore. They're just reading books, and people are working hard and spending decades of their life digging into the history of something and putting their heart and soul into it and telling the truth. And these jerk faces are coming back, behind us and lying about it. We can't let them muck this up. That's why it's important to tell the truth. It's important to tell the truth about JFK so we can stop it from happening now. Because if you don't think it's still going on, you're out of your mind. We just saw it. The parallels in the things in Butler, PA, mind-boggling. And you could see it instantly. We talked about it a little bit on the show. So that's why I think that the history and paranormal and things like that, conspiracies and true crime, all kind of layer on top of each other. Same goes here with the paranormal. While I think this is so important because they're trying so hard to tell the truth. So I'll shut up and let them tell the truth. I love you all. Maybe. No, I for sure love you, but maybe we'll watch it. Okay, here we go. Buttons.
Sydney's Rose Bay Police Station is a strange building with an even stranger history. The station is in a converted two-story terrace built last century to serve as the gatehouse for an old mansion called Woollahra. There's some evidence that convicts were whipped on the site in the early 1800s, and according to local legend, the old gatehouse later became a brothel where a certain Captain Piper kept ladies of ill repute. Over the years, the road has been rebuilt higher and higher, and the original front door is now underground. The bottom story has been sealed up for years like a time capsule and still has the gas fittings of a bygone era. But police don't use the lower level and certainly never go down there at night. They're too afraid. Sergeant Dennis Stevenson and his colleagues have never seen a ghost, but they're convinced they hear one. Some junior constables are so afraid they refuse to work alone in the building at night. And one of the policewomen wears a string of garlic around her neck to ward off evil spirits.
You have the presence, or you feel the presence of someone standing right next to you, ready to touch you on the shoulder. And you sort of look around, and of course there's no one there. Then you continue on, and of course the presence there will come again. The switchboard here kept on operating. The buttons on this thing here would move to and fro, and the phones would ring. All this stuff was all moving. The panels were all moving, but I had other matters here, though I've been standing there at the typewriter over here. And of course, I'll be busy typing, doing something here. You hear the sound of footsteps walking towards you. So just a moment, please. And when you finish, you look up, and no one's there.
Heard the footsteps outside. It's like a feeling of a presence behind you when you know someone's there or you feel you're being watched. It's about it. It's a strange sort of place.
You get the funny feeling sometimes that when you're here by yourself, there is something watching you, you know. It's just unexplainable, but you can sort of feel it.
Sergeant Stevenson and his colleagues are not the only police to brush with the supernatural. The long arm of the law also reached for the unknown in August 1966, when reporters, television cameramen, and 1,000 onlookers flocked to an ordinary suburban street in the Melbourne suburb of East Oakley. For 3 days, the huge crowd trampled on the nature strips and stared expectantly at a small weatherboard house.
Is this Enfield Ghost?
Inside, a small party of neighbors and police were grappling with a poltergeist.
Could have been.
Constable Lloyd Sherlock was called to the scene by police radio. He spent an entire night in the house and wrote down everything that happened. 20 years later, he's no closer to finding a logical explanation.
I was taking a name, address, and all that sort of thing for the police report. Started on the wall, which seemed to be on the outside. And then from the west side wall, it went to the front door, and then it followed around the house. And after a while, it was rapping on the back door, and the back door was, and I recorded all these different positions on the only bit of paper I had, which was a previous message.
So he's sitting in this room 20 years ago.
Mm.
And
That's
you hear
crazy.
knocking coming from all over the house,
Yes.
different directions,
Yes.
within seconds of each other.
Split seconds. One second would be on one corner of a house, and then the next is, well, as fast as light perhaps could travel, on the other side of the house.
So in investigating that, did you come up with any logical explanation?
Nothing. Even after 20 odd years, it still amazes me.
That's unnerving. Unnerving. That's That's too much.
What was the closest you ever got to the sound?
The closest was on the back door. It was a flush panel door. And I had my hand on the doorknob and I could sense and hear this knocking on the outside. Open the door, nothing there.
Did the sound stop?
Yeah, it stopped as though it was beating me. To me, it seemed as though he or who or she or what it was knew I was going to open that door.
So this entity or whatever it was that was knocking on the house seemed to have some intelligence attached to it.
I reckon it did. The only thing I can put it down is something supernatural, something unexplained.
While we were filming at the site, a next-door neighbor told us that he had been inside the house when the poltergeist activity first erupted, before the crowds and police first arrived. He agreed to tell us his story on condition that we conceal his identity.
Well, I have seen 2 or 3 lights, only about 8 inches long, similar to a small fluorescent lighting. And I've seen that on about 3 occasions, and on different nights.
Were these lights moving?
Absolutely.
Inside the house?
Inside the house.
You gotta wonder, what does it want? Is that all it can do?
The taps were always going on and off, mainly staying on all the time. At one stage there, I did get a spanner and tighten them up, and I defied anybody to have turned them on without using a spanner, but they still went on. Something or someone turned them on. Seen the bed being more or less rocked like a rocker, and then at times the kids getting jumped up and down, thumped up and down as if you were pushing the bed up and down all the time.
Is there any way the children could have been doing that themselves?
No, no way in the world, no way in the world.
So did it appear as if some other force was doing it?
Absolutely.
The things
what was
people
the state of the
through.
children when this was happening?
Oh, they were in a bad way, a real bad way.
Poltergeists are rarer than conventional hauntings, and they seem to have a much more devastating effect on those who suffer them at close quarters. It took the woman and her 2 daughters several years to fully recover from the experience. But when they moved out of the house, the activity suddenly stopped.
Poltergeist cases, like the one we've just seen, have got nothing to do with ghosts whatsoever. They centre around a particular person rather than a particular place, like this 13-year-old girl that I've got on the screen. In her presence, things appeared and disappeared mysteriously, and objects were thrown around the room. She believed that it was a devil, Dracu, who was doing it. And occasionally, when he got annoyed with her, he would bite her and scratch her, like these marks that you see on the cheek at the moment. I've investigated 12 poltergeist cases, 6 of which turned out to be genuine. What interests me very much is how that poltergeist subject differs from an ordinary person. And the answer seems to be that they're bottling up an intense emotion like anger, and nothing of it is getting out. When I succeed in getting them to release that anger, the disturbances stop. Some investigators have been more interested in the energy dynamics. What they do is to plot the movements in relation to the poltergeist subject. When you do that, this kind of diagram of the movements results. From the information, the type of energy field that could be producing the movements can be worked out. The energy appears to be swirling around the person, building up and collapsing as it does so, something like an electric fan rotating and blowing pieces of paper about. Poltergeist energy is being explored for its military applications. The Russians, for example, have someone who can stop a frog's heart beating using such energy. It seems that in poltergeist cases at least, it's the special power of a living person which produces the disturbance. But That's not the traditional explanation for a ghost. Some people with religious views believe that evil spirits or demons can haunt a house and are hostile and destructive towards living people in it. To investigate this possibility, we must go to a former hospital 97 kilometers east of Perth.
Okay, I wanted to stop it there real quick just to say this. I agree with everything he said, except one sentence. All. You know how I am about putting everything in a bag and everything in a box and nice and neat tucked in. I don't believe that all poltergeist cases or all cases that are like that are PK or the person. It's probably very high because people that have abilities and don't know how to keep them in control or expel that energy in a positive way by grounding and meditation and other things, that the energy is going to find a way to come out. This is why it makes it so difficult when you're doing a paranormal investigation or looking into a case, because you don't know, and that has to be investigated. You have to figure out, is it the person, is it someone in the house, or is it a combination? Because I actually lived in a situation where I think it was a combination of multiple things, and we can't just be quick to jump and say, okay, it's the girl. Because in a lot of cases, if you take the person out and the stuff keeps happening, or the stuff follows that person in a controlled environment, you can't just jump to conclusions. I think that can be dangerous, but I agree with everything else he said, if that makes sense. I don't know how you feel about it. Put it in the chat. I think that it's case by case basis, and everything has to be looked at, which makes it why it is so hard on good paranormal investigators, because you really have to look into all directions. You can't just jump, and that's why it takes longer than a 45-minute show, if you catch my drift. Your mileage may vary.
The old township of York stands like a time capsule in the Avon Valley, a fertile district on the edge of the West Australian desert. The town flourished in the 1880s as a staging post between Perth and the gold diggings. But in 1894, a railway to the goldfields bypassed York, and the town was neglected for more than half a century. The old York Hospital was built in 1896 to serve the farming district, and is on the site of a convict depot opposite the town cemetery. The hospital was used mainly by poorer residents. Wealthier people were nursed in their own home, where surgery was carried out on the kitchen table or in the patient's room. The building is now owned by the National Trust, which leases it to the state government as a youth hostel. In January 1980, a group of 5 adults and 28 children from a little athletics club 144 kilometers away traveled to York Hospital for a camping holiday. But their holiday was to become a nightmare.
We were told not to go upstairs at all.
Did you go upstairs at any stage?
Yes, we went up the first night. The reason we went up the first night, because it was such a very, very hot time, and the children were very hot. And I suggested, if we had a look upstairs, being up high, there may be more breeze coming through for the children to sleep up there. And, of course, Paul and Mrs. Kramer went upstairs. But when they came downstairs, they were very pale, and they said there's something wrong with the place up there.
We went up there with torches, and we got midway along the dormitory, and our torches went out. We had this howling wind coming down from the chimney, and with 47 degrees outside, there was no way that there could have been any wind.
We walked past the fireplace in the middle of the room, and both our torches went out. Now, at first, I thought it was just my torch blowing, so we walked back 3 or 4 times, and again, they went on and off, corresponding to when we're in front of the fireplace and everything, when we sort of came past the fireplace. But again, every time we walked in front of the fireplace, about 2 or 3 meters, they actually went off and came back on again.
hard to explain. These things happen. You know your torch has gone out, and you know the other person's torch has gone out. We sort of looked at the torches to see if there was anything wrong with them. As I say, they came back on their own accord.
There was a foul smell which came from a small attic which was up the top. To me, it smelled as something dead, like a dead animal or something. A very, very foul stench.
They said, well, you couldn't put the children up there because there's something strange up there. And then we're sitting there for a while, and this terrible moaning noise started. Well, at first you'd say it was the wind, but then when you look and you say, well, there wasn't any wind. It was so hot and still at York. So it wasn't wind, but then it got louder, and was a definite sound of a woman crying, in pain, moaning.
It was a definite noise, which wasn't the rustle of the trees. It wasn't any wind. And the only way you could explain it was as a moaning.
I would have noped my ass right out of there.
It was very frightening because you'd swear there was someone up there in terrible pain. But I mean, because there wasn't anyone there.
Why did you not leave then?
Well, we're in a position, to be honest with you. As I said, we hired a bus, and Maureen's husband was kind enough to take the day off and drive us there, and he was to pick us up in a week's time, and that's all we could do. We had no transport there. We didn't have a car. Little did we know these kind of things would happen. I mean, you wouldn't have gone in the first place, would you?
But at this early stage, did you think the building was haunted, or did you think something else?
Mrs. Kramer had thought the place was haunted. And of course, I said, don't be stupid. Your imagination's running a little bit wild here. And of course, Paul said to me, you know, Mum, there's something definitely wrong here. Well, the first thing that happened that morning, Maureen and I got up to get the children's breakfast. We went into the kitchen. We got the milk. And I had this crockery jug, which I put on the bench. And I walked across to Maureen. And the next thing, out of the corner of my eye, I could see this jug lift and come across, float straight across the room at it.
I just stood there watching it. I couldn't believe my eyes. It moved and it came to the end, and instead of toppling off like things normally do, it just floated.
It was very hard to believe. And of course, I thought then, well, it didn't just fall on the floor, it definitely floated. And because Maureen and I stood there shocked. We were shocked. Then the next thing, the stove had turned on and off. While you were using it, it had just turned itself on and off. It was a very queer thing that kept happening in those kitchens.
Did anything else around the place move?
Yeah, and the doorknobs. You'd be standing outside and they'd be spinning. Just absolutely spinning. And there was nobody else on the other side or anything because we checked all that. But they were just spinning, the doorknobs spin.
For some reason, I was just walking past the main staircase which went upstairs and came to my notice and getting one of the ladies, there seemed to be blood coming from within the staircase, sort of running out on the outside of the staircase. The actual lady tasted it to check that it really was blood, and she said it was, and it definitely looked like, I didn't personally taste it, but she did, and she said it definitely tasted like blood, and it certainly looked like blood.
Wow. This is great. Can you guys hear me? I think you can hear me, right? The mic's working. For some reason, my camera just went. Let me try this. Okay. Okay. We're back. What was that? So you can hear me. Now you can see me? Okay. So the whole reason I stopped that, why the hell did I stop that? What did he say? Oh, did he just say that she tasted the blood? Did he just say that this woman, there was slime coming out of the steps and she tasted it and she said the second scary thing, it tasted like blood. I just want to make sure I was hearing things right. Okay, let's try this again. Goodness gracious, the buttons. That wasn't me that time. We're good.
It was trickling out at probably a constant rate. It sort of, if I was sort of trying to give a quantity, it probably would have been if I mopped it up, I might have probably filled a full face pot type thing if I mopped it up.
Well, the worst thing that happened there, we had a little girl there, and she was running along the hallway. And the next thing she screamed, and because when she came down to us, her wrist was cut right open. Terrible gash she had.
The girl was actually somehow thrown through the window, arm first. She, I think, from memory search, had 12 or 15 stitches inserted in her arm.
Sometimes ghosts hurt you. Don't ever believe
this
different.
Little girl, she's only a little tot, that's all. It would be impossible for her to fall and her arm to go through that glass. It was too high for the child.
How high was the glass from the floor?
Probably at 3.5 to 4 foot.
How tall was the girl?
Well, she was only about 8 years old, probably 4 foot herself.
They had to get a plank of wood and smash the glass. That's the only way you could get it out. So we couldn't work it out.
Did you only hear the moaning the once?
No, the moaning was every night. And it even got to the stage where a couple of afternoons, where I was left with the children by myself, a couple of children, it continued then. But it was every night.
You know that there are people watching saying, what a pack of nonsense.
Oh, yeah. We've sort of been through this before. It just, things happen, you sort of tell them as you see them.
But this really did happen?
Oh, yeah.
The 3 witnesses say the frightening phenomena continued at York Hostel for 4 days without anyone seeing a ghost. But they suspected the disturbances were coming from the locked room upstairs, where Paul Harrison and Maureen Kramer first experienced a foul smell and cold wind. Legend has it that in the old days, patients who had died and those who were about to die were kept together in that section of the hospital. Locals call it the morgue or dying room. And it's said that on certain nights, the ghost of a former matron who died violently at the old hospital can be heard moaning as it wanders along the upstairs wards.
So sad.
On the final night of their stay, something happened which forced the 3 adults to gather their courage and pay a last visit to the dying room on the top floor.
I saw what I can only describe as an apparition on the stairs. It's just like a fleeting object. I can't really describe what it was. All I know is it absolutely petrified me.
She said to me, there's something floating up the staircase. Because as we turned around and looked at her, her face had changed completely. You'd never recognise the woman. At first I got frightened. I would have said the woman had had a stroke because her face was so twisted you wouldn't have recognised her.
Apparently, from what I can gather, I knew nothing else for a few minutes. And then we heard this almighty bang.
An extremely loud explosion seemed to come from, very close. Originally, we thought it was a gas heater or a water heater or something blowing up.
I had to investigate. I couldn't work it out. But I only got to the second landing and a terrible feeling came over me, like pins and needles, and I couldn't move. And you felt very, very old, like you've aged. I felt like I'd aged. But then the pins and needles left me, but I didn't continue. I came back down. Paul and Mrs. Kramer continued up and looked in this small room.
It was open. It actually blown open and it was fixed right the way back. The bolt was back and the lock was off.
Did you get any sensation while you were there from that particular room?
Yes, I couldn't put my foot over the threshold. I felt nauseated every time I went near the place. It was uncanny.
It was only a very, very small room and there didn't appear to be anything in there, but the smell was still in there.
I was going to go and ask for help to take these children out that night because I said, I can't stay here another night. But we had to. There was nothing more we could do.
What did you in fact do then?
Well, we all went into the one room. I know it's going to sound silly, but we had, one of them had a baseball bat.
This is what my family did.
And even one of the ladies had a can of pressure pack fly spray. I know it sounds so stupid. What we're going to do with it, I don't really know. But then we had, well, everything was quiet for a while. And then this friend that was with us, she was laying on the bed and she started screaming out, they've got me by the throat. And of course we said to her, wake up, you're having a sleep, but she wasn't asleep. And because when we turned the light on, I said, you've only had a sleep. I said, it's been too much for you. But when we looked, there's definitely marks on her throat. And of course I think that was the last straw. I mean, that definitely, she said she had me by the throat and there was definitely marks on that woman's throat. She said to me, don't go on your bed, there's something at your window, Joan. And I said to her, no, I said, there's nothing at the window. But I did, I pulled the curtain back and there was a figure at the window.
Can you describe it?
It was a very big woman, very, very big woman, like matronly sort of a woman. And all you can see, it was the body, the head, but her arms were folded like that. Yet I lifted the curtain, and it shows you what shock does to people, because I must have been in shock. I just kept staring at it.
My goodness, what would you do?
Then I put the curtain back, and I said to him, there's nothing. No, I thought, no, I'm not seeing it. So I laid on the bed, and I thought, no, I've got to look again. And I did look again, and it was still there.
Wow. Wow.
The next morning, we were up, out, and waiting for that bus.
I really can't give an explanation. A lot of things.
Can you imagine
just
being
happened.
stuck?
I've got no explanation whatsoever. I'm absolutely stumped.
Wow. Quite the experience.
York Hostel seemed to come straight out of a horror movie. It also snowballed from day to day, so that by the final night, things were becoming very hectic indeed. I think those people were lucky that they could leave the following day, otherwise the disturbances would have got even worse.
This gain in energy.
When children are involved in a group like that, it's best to get them out as quickly as possible and back to their own homes. But, you know, in a way, the adults brought all that on themselves, because what they were doing was reliving an ancient fairy story, exploring the forbidden room. They were told that a part of the building was off limits, and they went back to it again and again and again. And every time they did that, the disturbances got worse. But let's leave the possibility of evil forces for the time being, and instead turn to some ghosts that are much less threatening. There's some ghosts that inspire a great deal of affection in living people.
Here we go. It's a nice one.
The Rocks.
We
A
can't
small
forget
area
those that do
nestling in the
exist.
shadows of Sydney Harbour Bridge probably has more ghosts per square kilometre than any other spot in the country. The British settlement of Australia began here on January the 26th, 1788, when Captain Arthur Phillip sailed the first fleet into Sydney Harbour.
Hey,
From
Joe.
that time onwards, it has been an ideal breeding ground for ghosts, built by convict chain gangs which suffered the continent's first whippings and hangings. Despite high hopes for the colony, the Rocks became a haven for thugs, drunks and prostitutes, and the site of Australia's first prison. Later, it became a slum area, And in 1900, there was an outbreak of bubonic plague. Poorer residents were forced out so the infected buildings could be fumigated or demolished. The surviving buildings are now being restored by the Sydney Cove Redevelopment Authority, the sort of conservative semi-government body which would normally never believe in ghosts. The trouble is that its own information centre, in a former coroner's court and mortuary, is haunted by a mischievous ghost which the staff have nicknamed Fred. It first appeared to an office manager who saw the apparition of a young man which called out, "I am innocent." The current information officer, Josephine Christensen, has no fear of Fred. In fact, she seems rather fond of him.
Do you know anything of the history of Fred or why he may be haunting this place?
No, I wish Fred would tell us. I'm sure we'd all be very pleased, because if he's upset, we'd like to help him. He doesn't seem to do anything very bad to us. I mean, we coexist with Fred. We say good morning to him when we arrive in the visitor centre, hoping that we'll put Fred in a good mood for the rest of the day.
Quite often people sense a presence in the building, even though they don't see anything or hear anything. Do you sense a presence here at all?
Well, I think this is simply because of the stories we've had. We do. We sense Fred. We'll come in the mornings and a lot of our display material will be on the ground. And we can see no apparent reason for this except that Fred doesn't like it there. And we put it back. And sometimes we put it back so often and it falls down that we just don't put it back anymore. And Fred wins in our eyes.
There's another Fred, about 100 kilometres
Good
away
for her.
from Sydney, at Campbelltown. Every November, the city holds one of the world's most extraordinary festivals.
That looks like fun.
To celebrate the ghost of an ex-convict murdered in the town 160 years ago.
Why not?
For 6 days, the town develops ghost fever, and thousands of people line the streets for a parade of decorated floats, pipers, brass bands, and ghosts in costume.
There you go. Just
It's
make
all
up
in
a
honour
festival.
of Australia's
I love
most
it.
famous and cherished phantom, the spirit of a ticketed leave convict called Fred Fisher, who once operated a small farm on the edge of town. The legend of Fisher's ghost is part of Australia's folklore, but the story is founded on historical fact.
That's
Fred Fisher was
fantastic.
an industrious man determined to rise above his convict past. He worked hard on his small property and enjoyed the friendship and respect of the townspeople. He was last seen alive one afternoon in 1826, mending fences in paddocks near a small creek. Court records show that while he was working, Fred was visited by a more prosperous farmer called George Worrell, who argued with him over the location of the boundary between their two properties. But the terrible fate of Fred Fisher wasn't discovered until months later. It's not the brutal murder of Fred Fisher that the people of Campbelltown celebrate every year. It's his ghost. The story has come to symbolize the triumph of good over evil and the victory of a little Aussie battler over the bigger bloke. As far as the townspeople knew, Fred Fisher had simply vanished. And in the weeks that followed, George Worrell fabricated the story that Fisher had sold him his farm before fleeing to England to escape a forgery charge. Worrell began selling up Fisher's goods, and although the townsfolk were suspicious, nothing could be proved. He had disposed of Fisher's body by dragging it to a small creek and burying it in a shallow grave. About 3 months after Fisher's disappearance, a local resident, John Farley, came rushing white-faced into the local pub, claiming he had seen Fisher's ghost sitting on the handrail of a fence. He said the apparition had slowly turned and pointed towards the creek. And a short time later, Aboriginal trackers guided police to the body at the exact spot indicated by the ghost. Worrell was arrested, convicted, and hanged for the crime. The story became legend, and for the past century and a half, locals have claimed that Fisher's ghost can sometimes still be seen sitting on the fence, pointing accusingly to where he was dragged by his murderer. The historic Princess Theatre in Melbourne is the home of a third well-loved ghost called Fred. It's the apparition of a noted opera singer, Frederick Baker, who died in the theatre under the most bizarre circumstances imaginable. On March the 3rd, 1888, Frederick was playing the demonic role of Mephistopheles in a production of Faust. In the final scene of the opera, Mephistopheles returns to Hades with Faust, and Fred, in crimson costume, descended to hell amid theatrical smoke and flames through the stage trapdoor. A platform operated by ropes and pulleys carried Fred below, but he suffered a heart attack on the way down and died without speaking another word. It seems Fred couldn't accept missing out on the final bow, because from the moment he died, strange events were recorded at the Princess Theatre. His ghost has become a theatrical legend. The phantom is known to generations of theatre folk as Federici, a glowing human shape whose appearance spells good luck for any forthcoming production. And Federici has appeared to scores of people over the past century.
Matter of
How
fact,
cool
right
is that?
here. I was sitting where I am standing now, and my back was towards the house, and Malcolm Phillips, who was directing the play, unfortunately Malcolm's now dead, but he was looking out into the theatre, and he said, "There he is, the poor old bastard." And I said, "Who?" And he said, Fred, he's out there in the circle. So I really had to build myself up to it. It wasn't not my favorite moment at that moment of time. And I turned around, and there he was up there in the circle. And the theatre had gone cold. And I became conscious of the smell like old lavender. You know that type of smell if you go into an elderly lady's home and you get open linen drawers and you get that strange lavender type smell. But what we saw was a shape of white light like that, with a diffused grey light around it.
Wow.
All I can say is that's what happened to me right here on this stage, and whatever it was up there.
We've just seen two non-threatening but very different ghosts. Federici at the Princess Theatre seems to linger on for no apparent purpose. Fisher's ghost suggests two possibilities. The first is that his spirit survived death and came back to give information about the murder. The second possibility is that his observer gained telepathic information from the murderer's mind and dramatized this up into a projected apparition. But
Interesting.
Our next ghost is quite different. In fact, it may not be a ghost at all. It's a kind of force which brings out the violence in people, and it exists in Clarkfield Hotel, which has the reputation of being the most haunted building in Australia.
And much to our chagrin, that is where I am going to stop it, because I'll tell you why. It's a good reason. There is more than half of this little gem left. So it's a whole nother episode. And I think what we can do is think about what we learned tonight, come back next Sunday, and talk about these types of ghosts. And what do you think about it? Also, let's see if we can find anything on this parapsychologist. Henry found a little bit on him, and he's possible he's still alive. Again, I don't know when this was recorded. I don't know when it was shown in Australia. I'm assuming it was a TV special of some sort. It's an hour and 35 minutes long. It seems to be called The Haunted, and I'll check the back credits to see if I can pick up anything on that. All right. But here's why I need the help, because tomorrow I'm starting Tapestry. It's going to be a deep dive. And again, like I described, going at the Kennedy assassination, I think I'm comfortable doing it like a hallway with the doors. And once we get done in one room, however deep and dark that may be, we'll come out, we'll leave that door cracked, or we'll shut it. You know, I suggest we keep them all cracked until somebody is absolutely proved a liar, which is going to be hard because there's so many conspiracies that overlap false flags, that overlap pure lies, that overlap cover-ups before the event. You know, uh, so many different things. So to shut a door, it's going to take an awful lot. In my book, you may feel different, but if you guys can go look on this parapsychologist, somebody throw his name up there again. I'll see if I can find it in the chat. But because I'm going to be digging on that, and maybe next week I'll have to look at it. Next Monday, Steve is back. He would probably love being in on this JFK stuff. So we'll see how that goes if he's unpacked and ready to roll. So we'll save half this second half because we're already over time and I don't want to keep you guys. But it would help me out a lot if you could look this guy up, because I'd love to dig into it, but I think I need to stay focused on this first door into Kennedy, and the second, third, fourth ones are going to be really deep. So I need all my time to do that. Maurice Marsh, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate it. Thank you, Vixen. My friends, how are you? I'm so glad to see you guys. And Vixen, you're missing some good movies. I don't know if you got in on Rumble. Let me know what's going on. Can you get in on Rumble? Are you comfortable over there? Because let me tell you, I thought about it before. I wanted to tell everybody. The thing about Rumble is once you open your first page, whatever you want to call it, okay, it's my understanding that you can't go back and change anything. You can't change the name. You can't really edit a lot. There's some things you can change. They're working on it. But if you're having a problem with Rumble, the best thing to do is just delete your account, let it go, and start over again. Or before you do that, try updating that app. I don't know how people are watching. If you're on your phone, update the app. If you're on your PC or whatever. You did get into Rumble? Okay, good. Because you're missing some good movies. I don't know if I just worry that people are having problems getting in, because I know I did. And I hear other people having problems, or once you get in, trying to navigate it. So just so you know, it doesn't cost anything. The movies are free. The shows are going to be free, because eventually, I've been saying it a while, but it takes a lot more than just saying it to get a night working on the other show. And I'm also thinking what to call it. I'm kind of leaning towards unburdened news or unburdened, and I don't know. It's going to be wild. And I want to do something like a catch up on the week, because I also want to leave. It is very confusing, Ted. I know. So if anybody's having any problems, I would say ask me, but ask me. Chances are I'm not going to know the answer to it. I'm going to send you someplace or send somebody to you to help explain it, because you know me, I just keep hitting buttons till I get the right one. And that works for me. But I'm old school boomer, you know. That's right. I'm a boomer. So, you know, too bad if that bothers people, but this is where I am. So, all right, let's go back over it real quick. Try to help me find out about that parapsychologist. I really like the way he thinks. Like sometimes when he says stuff, I'm like, and then he kind of comes out of it. And I like that, because he seems to be very open-minded. The only thing I am, like I said, saying all of anything gets under my skin, because we need to be past that. There's just too much out there. There's too much going on. People live their lives like that. They live it very 2D, you know, very black and white, very self-centered, not really seeing or interested in what's going on, you know, around them. And empaths can't do that. Unburdened by what has been. That's right, RP. You know, I was thinking, like, you know, unburdened, unashamed, you know, whatever. The thing is I want it to be like a current event for people to come for the same reason I do this show. I don't know everything, that's for damn sure, but I know some things, and I've learned some stuff, and I got the scars to prove it, you know. And I think a lot of us have we might not be comfortable with the consciousness that we have right now, but we're trying to juggle it as best we can, you know. And all of us got like whatever you want to call it, downloads or woke up or you see things differently, whatever shift this was, and we're all trying to deal with it different, because some of our abilities are just going bonkers. So what I do is I try to communicate with living human beings like I do when I have the chance to do it with the dead. So as odd as that statement sounds, if I know there's a lot of confusion out there, and I have been researching this for a very long time. Like I said, you can go back to JFK because, again, I believe that is a moment in time where our nation hit its knees and it never really got back up. Not the right way, and people have been living in an illusion, but they also forget that while we were living that illusion, we were also living, and there's a lot of good that was pulled from it, and a lot of people didn't just get weak. A lot of people got very strong. And I'm not just talking about empaths. I'm talking about human beings in a lot of ways, because I think our DNA, our human DNA is so strong, and our memory, our ancestors, our past lives, all of those things, our souls, our consciousness, our elders, everybody walked before us, all that wisdom is crescendoing into a time when it is most needed, and has been brewing for a very, very long time. And I believe we are coming into an age that will be spoken about in history books for a very long time. And I believe some of us are here to make sure others make it. So my way of helping people do that is to not just reach into the darkness and say, hey, look, if you have abilities, interest in paranormal, metaphysical, all this, it's not just dark and thing that creaks is a demon and get out and all that. You're missing the beauty, you're missing the miracle, you're missing the humanity of it all and the spirituality of it all, and what you're really connected into and what you're probably here to do. So I'm reaching out not just into the darkness to show people the light and understand ghosts and all this other stuff along the way and all the wild, wonderful things out there, right? And history. But I want to reach out and to show where, if you're going through something this week and you're worried about what might be going on, you're not quite getting it because you're busy working a couple of jobs to put food on the table, you don't have time for the research. I'm in a time in my life where I can do research, and I've been doing it, and I do a lot of it. So I see the 5D chess. I see the stuff going on behind the scenes. I see the pattern. I see the big picture. And if you do too, you can come to that show and we could talk about it. But if you don't have the time and things that are affecting you in your life and you're not really sure about it, and you have a question, if I don't know, I'll send you someplace I know that you will get the answer. And this would be an answer from somebody I've been vetting for probably 10 years, maybe longer. So I'm not just sending you to some schmuck. These are people, because believe me, I've dropped a lot of people along the way, and a lot of my own research and the books I've read and the things I've done and the stuff I've been involved with in my life has put me in this position where I see it. And one of my empath ways or one of my abilities or whatever is to be able to look at people and say, look, okay, you're concerned about your 401k. Let me explain that to you. I'm not a financial expert or any of this, but I can tell you this. If you're not holding something, you don't have it. It's been like that for a long time. Don't live in the illusion where, if that bothers you and you're in a bad position, move some stuff. It's like the people I work with, and I'd tell them something like, well, meat and gas are about to go up, and probably this, and this, and watch your insurance and check your rent. You might want to put a little something up. You might want to skip that vacation, maybe go on the cheaper one and put a little something. Nothing's going to happen. 3 months later, And they all look, and they're mad at me because I told them and they didn't listen. Things like that, or things that are going on today. You go, why would this be happening? And why am I looking at the people that are in charge and they're kind of like, they're so chill about things? It's a little scary because I don't understand. Let's talk about it. And I'll pull up some things that happened that week, and we'll laugh and we'll get each other through it. And we'll all come together in the end, because I believe we're at a time where this is what we were born for. Just like Joan of Arc said, I'm not afraid I was born for this. So were you. So many people in this chat listening that I hear from, watch a show 3 weeks after it's posted, in their time when the spirit moves them and they see it. And I hope to point you out to some people who are very, very smart and know a lot about these subjects, and ease your mind. Ease your mind so you can free up your mind and your body and your soul to help your situation better, because if you help your situation, you can help others. And let's get to that point where we thought we were back in the 50s, 60s, back when people helped their neighbor, not sued them. You know what I mean? We can get there. Right now, we're in a position where I believe, and my opinion is, we're in a position where a lot of people, it's like, it all started when everybody started getting a trophy. People started getting out of hand, and parents were afraid to be parents, and families got broke up, and we made it a normal thing for one person to live in a 5-bedroom mansion with so many things, because we are what we have, right? Not who we are, what we have. Materialistic, shallow. You don't need anybody. Every man for himself. How many followers do you have? How did we get there? Back when I was a youngin' and I was dating, I never even asked what car I didn't give a crap what you drove. Even when I was young, I realized it was the character. A lot of times I misjudged character, but you learn. But I don't know how we got to how many followers do you have? And that's how, again, we can't sort that tonight. But the thing is, we've got a bunch of brats running around that somehow didn't learn to respect themselves, respect other people, respect other people's space, and trying to get people that have been allowed to color outside of the lines for so long that they forgot there was even a picture and started making up their own shit. Again, in my opinion, it's hard to get people to color back in the lines once they've, how are you going to get them down on the farm kind of thing? But evolution and time and necessity and the need to survive and in a reasonable, peaceful manner has a way of finding a way, because of what I said earlier, the DNA, the memory, the elders, the people that walked before. They cannot walk in vain. Eventually that pendulum swings back and common sense rules again. If the idea is real, if the idea is embedded deeper than just a person standing by themselves, it's a nation, it's a global humanity. And that's the only race that should count, the human race. These are my opinions. They are backed by just survival, paying attention. So I want to do a show where you can come and say, hey, look, do you know anything about this? Because this is concerning me. Can you explain that? Sure. Let's pull up the document and look at it. Like I was talking to Brad Olson. I said, hey, Brad, all this hubbub about this, all this look over there. We are in a time where there's so much look over here because that's going on. Actually, you have to look in both spaces. Then you have to look under it. And then you have to look under the bed and the thing in the closet. Holy shit. I have the time to do that. So if we can do that in one show a week, I hope you're there. That's what the Rumble show is going to be. We're going to start with JFK Tapestry. I hope you're there. I want your input. But more than anything else, we're going to use that to expand the way we paranormal investigate or go look at cases or our own cases, discern in life, and learn from each other, be a community, and try to learn the truth and uncover it and put it right out on the front porch and give that sumbitch a cocktail. Keep our eye on it, because if we don't learn from history, we're destined to repeat it. George Santayana. We're not going to let that happen. Not on our watch. I'm going to stop the suffering and stop the kids dying and the damn fentanyl and the drugs and the poison in the food, the poison in our minds, the poison in our eyes, and live with my peanut butter and your chocolate over there. Everybody's happy. And maybe get a little bit more of that homespun back. It's hard to kill an idea, folks. Just keep keeping on. Keep the lights on. We'll finish this next Sunday. Our Tuesday night movie on Rumble. I found 2 good copies. How you doing over there, Grey Wolf? Hang on, baby. Hang on to Canada, baby. I'm telling you, it's just we're on a roller coaster. Don't believe the hype. We're right there with you. You know, all of y'all. UK, hang on. Italy, looking good. You know, we got this. We got this. Hang on. Keep hope alive. We will not let them put our lights out. We were here for this. This is the next level. Ghosts are coming with us. Okay? I love y'all. Next Sunday, we'll finish this. Tuesday night, I've got 2 copies I was able to find that I think I can share with you. One is a movie you may not have heard with Mira Sorvino. It's called The Presence. It's very deep. It's very realistic. I love what they did with it. I think it's 2014. I don't know if you've seen it. Indians were sure what? Smart? Yeah, smart. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's just don't get me started. Remember, my people started out on the East Coast, moved all the way to Oklahoma. So, yeah, I understand. I mean, girl, we're going to have some shows. We're going to do some talking. We're going to do some talking. We're going to keep this going too, as long as YouTube allows me. But if I don't watch my mouth, I'm going to be in trouble quick. They already monetized me, So, yeah, I think it'll be fun. We got a lot of people that, have experienced stuff here lately and been through hell, been drugged through hell. We come up out of it, man. This is the Green Dragon all over again. This is a time I'm very happy to be alive to see, and I'm very glad I'm here to see it with you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this. I can't wait for the second half. I love this guy. I like the stories. I don't know what was going on. I can't imagine taking a bus to go stay at this. What the hell was it? A hostel? They rented the whole house or something. And then they say, don't go in on the attic. What's the first thing they do? They go up in the attic. They got one lady tasting blood off the stairs and stuff. Where's this stuff been? I can't believe I haven't seen this before. It's crazy. But, that's the paranormal. That's the world we live in. Crazy. But I think it's neat that at least looking at ghosts too, we can look back and say at least, we go on. And I think the big lesson from that too, with all the ghosts struggling and trying to stay back and fix things that they did when they were alive, or come back and ease somebody's mind because they care about this person and this person's going through a bad turn or grief about them or worry about them and how they passed or whatever it may be. And you got to figure if it matters so much after death in the afterlife, why aren't we paying more attention to it in the living? And if we can do something, we can reach out, we can help out, and use our talents, whatever it may be, however crazy they may be. It's not how well a show is produced or doesn't make mistakes or whatever, how many views it's got or how many followers or any of that. It's a matter of fact, it's information is getting out there and it's getting to the people that need to hear it. And we put it in the spirit's hands and it keeps happening. It keeps happening. It blows my mind. So that's enough. It's enough. And if it eases your mind and like I said, you have something you want to talk about or you just want to laugh at me goofing, I'm fine. I'm here for it. I'm here for all this. I'm so here for it. I hope you are too. The other movie, I know I'm zigzagging back and forth. I'm sorry, I'm tired. But we're gonna finish up here. The other one is Rosemary's Baby. I don't know if you ever saw that. So I've got The Presence, I got Rosemary's Baby, but I'm trying to get you Signs. I'd love to see Signs. I think there's a lot in that has a lot of you can kind of feel the parallel with sometimes now. We had those aliens in the backyard in Las Vegas not too long ago. We had the Miami shootings, not shootings. Well, there was, but it was different kind. It was so strange, wasn't it? It was a bunch of tall, giant aliens in some mall in Miami. And I think like 150 cars showed up. It's not hyperbole. That really happened. And then all of a sudden, all the tapes disappeared. What was that? Was it a false flag? Were they trying to get us ready for something? And the drones over Jersey with the plasma balls and all this crap. What is that? Is Von Braun's premonition coming true where he said, the false alien invasion, is that going to be what's next and all this other crap? Project Bluebeam, all that stuff. We'll talk about it all. It'll be fun. All right. I love you all. Yeah, if I can get Signs, that'd be cool. So I'm still looking. Give me a little time. That's for Tuesday. Tomorrow night, I'll be working all day on trying to get Tapestry together for you. This is going to be a ride, folks. This is going to be a ride. I take the JFK, everything very seriously. Like I said, I can tell you stories about the man, both good and bad. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is they did this. They is a very broad word right now. We'll narrow it down as close as we can get. But it makes me sick that it's been 60 years and, people can say back and to the left, like it's nothing. They killed, a man died that day in front of his wife and a lot of people that cared about him. A lot of people were happy and celebrated. I hear the Markinsons had caviar and champagne for a week celebrating. A lot of dastardly deeds went on. They're still going on. And they'll keep going on till we put the light on it, put it on the front porch, give it a freaking cocktail, where we can keep an eye on it so it never happens again. Now's the time. I hope you'll come with me. All right. Let me see if I can show you this last thing and then we're out of here. Let me see which one. Oh, man. Oh, man. Where are my bookmarks? I don't know if you guys can see this. Damn. This ought to be fun. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I'm trying to find one specific thing. I'll tell you what. I'll show it to you tomorrow. Because it really is something else. But all this stuff. But I lost all my videos when it went on me. So let me see if I can pull one up so we can get on out of here. I love y'all. Vote down at the bottom on your way out if you want to see one of the 3 movies that I said: Rosemary's Baby, Signs. I mean, if I've got to rent that to show it to you, I will, because I think it's that important. What was the other one I said? I've done forgot now. Oh, The Presence with Mira Sorvino. That's good flick. All right, everybody, kick your shoes off. Little dance our way out of here. I love y'all, and thanks for hanging late with me. And see you tomorrow night for Tapestry. Good night, everybody. Maybe.